Treating others fairly, a Stoic imperative. I tested an ancient philosophy on modern life. Why treating people fairly is the ultimate power move, Stoicism. Alright, look, I've been doing this philosophy thing, this deep thinking about life, for a long time, and I've seen a lot. I've seen people build empires on unfairness, relationships crumble under the weight of betrayal, and I've seen the quiet, insidious destruction that happens inside you when you compromise your own principles just to get ahead. Just to win, just to feel powerful. It feels good for a second, doesn't it? That rush of getting one over on someone, of taking what you feel you're owed. Maybe even a little bit more. We've all felt it. We've all been there, standing at that crossroads, where the easy path, the seemingly logical path, the path that promises immediate gain, involves treating someone, well, unfairly, just a little bit, a white lie, a sidestep of the rules, taking advantage of a loophole. Maybe it's that moment in a negotiation when you know the other person is desperate, and you could crush them, take everything. Maybe it's when someone wrongs you, deeply, painfully, and the urge to lash out, to make them hurt, to retaliate unfairly, is so overwhelming it feels like a physical force trying to drag you under. Or maybe it's just the daily grind, the small interactions, the quick judgments, the moments when you choose convenience over kindness, indifference over empathy, a slight advantage over simple, undeniable fairness. And for years, I navigated those moments like most people do. Sometimes I chose the easy path. Sometimes I fought against it. Sometimes I won. Sometimes I lost. But mostly, I just reacted, based on how I felt, based on what seemed best for me in that exact moment. And let me tell you, it was exhausting. It was unpredictable. And deep down, it felt wrong. Like I was constantly fighting against something fundamental about how the world, and more importantly, how I was supposed to work. Then, I stumbled, truly stumbled, into something ancient, something powerful, something that didn't give me a list of rules, but a framework, a way of seeing the world, and my place in it. That wasn't about manipulating others or getting what I wanted, but about something else entirely. It was about building something internal, something indestructible. And at the heart of it, beating like a drum, was this single, non-negotiable, intensely challenging idea: treating others fairly, not just when it's easy, not just when they deserve it, but always, as an imperative, a duty, a core principle of a life well lived. And when I started trying to live by that principle, truly commit to it, especially in those moments when every fiber of my being screamed to be unfair, everything changed, and I mean everything. My relationships, my work, my internal state, my understanding of power, even my physical health. It was like I unlocked a door I didn't even know was there. And look, I know what you might be thinking. Treating others fairly? That's weak. That's for suckers. This is a tough world. You have to look out for number one. Fairness gets you walked all over. And honestly, I thought that too. For a long time, I saw people who were ruthless, who cut corners, who prioritized their own gain above all else. And from the outside, they seemed successful, they seemed powerful. But what I want to show you today, what we're going to unpack together, is the hidden truth, the profound, almost unbelievable power that comes from choosing fairness, even when it costs you, especially when it costs you. We're going to dive deep into what Stoicism actually says about this. And I'm going to share some stories, some real-life scenarios, that show you exactly how this ancient idea plays out in the messy, complicated world you live in right now. I'm talking about moments that tested me to my core. Moments where being fair seemed utterly impossible. Moments where the temptation to be unfair was almost unbearable. And I'm going to show you the results. Results that, frankly, blew my own mind. By the end of this, you're going to see treating others fairly not as a weakness, but as the ultimate strategic advantage, the deepest form of strength, and the non-negotiable foundation of a life worth living. You're going to understand why the Stoics didn't just suggest this. They commanded it, and you're going to see how it can transform your own life in ways you cannot possibly imagine right now. Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Let's go back to a moment that, for me, was a brutal test of this idea. It was a business deal. High stakes. Lots of money on the table. And the person on the other side, well, let's just say they were less than scrupulous. They had already tried to pull a fast one earlier in the negotiation. A blatant attempt to mislead us. To gain an unfair advantage. We caught it, but it left a bad taste. Trust was broken, and as we neared the finish line, there was this moment, this tiny window, where I saw an opportunity. An opportunity to use a piece of information we had, something they didn't know we knew, to our advantage, to basically hit back, to level the playing field. As my mind tried to rationalize it, it wasn't strictly illegal, maybe not even explicitly against the contract terms. But it was absolutely, undeniably, unfair. It would have hurt them. It would have given us a significant upper hand. And the internal voice, the one that whispers, they deserve it. This is business. Don't be a fool, was screaming. It felt like the smart move. The strategic move. The move that would protect my interests and the interests of my team. The pressure was immense. My colleagues were subtly hinting at it, too. Are we just going to let them get away with that? They seemed to be saying without words. This is where Stoicism didn't give me an easy answer. But it gave me a lens. It gave me a question to ask myself that cut through all the noise. All the emotion. All the perceived external pressure. The question wasn't, what's the most profitable move? Or, what will make me look strongest? Or, what do they deserve? The question was, and this is the core of it, the absolutely critical pivot point. What is the virtuous action here? And the Stoics were crystal clear. There are 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. And justice? Justice is about treating others fairly. It's about our duty to our fellow human beings, our community, the world. It's about recognizing their inherent worth, just as we recognize our own. It's about not harming others, and actively seeking their well-being, where possible and appropriate. And in that moment, standing there, feeling the heat of the negotiation, the unfairness of their past actions burning in my mind, the virtuous action, the just action, was undeniably not to exploit their vulnerability, not to use that unfair tactic, even though it felt like retaliation. It felt like balancing the scales. But Stoicism taught me that my character, my actions, are the only things I truly control. Their unfairness is their problem, their damage to their own character. My response to their unfairness doesn't have to mirror it. In fact, if I respond unfairly, I become like them. I damage my character. I lose my internal peace. I become a slave to their actions, letting them dictate how I behave. And this was the philosophical moment that hit me like a physical blow at roughly the 3-minute mark. It wasn't about them anymore. It wasn't about evening the score. It was about me. It was about deciding, in that furnace of pressure, who I was going to be. Was I going to be someone whose actions were dictated by the poor behavior of others? Or was I going to be someone guided by an internal compass? Calibrated to something higher? Was my character for sale? To be bartered away for a temporary advantage? Or was it priceless? Something to be guarded fiercely? This wasn't just a business decision anymore, it was a philosophical declaration. A declaration of independence from the external chaos and unfairness of the world. A declaration that my integrity was non-negotiable. This wasn't just a unique interpretation for my channel. This was a unique interpretation happening inside me. In real time, changing my understanding of the situation entirely. It shifted the focus from the external fight to the internal battle. And that's a battle you can always win, regardless of what anyone else does. So, in that negotiation, with the pressure mounting, I made the difficult choice. I didn't use the information unfairly. I proceeded with the negotiation based on the merits, on the terms that were fair to both sides, even though they had shown themselves willing to be unfair. And let me tell you, the immediate aftermath wasn't fireworks and angels singing. It felt anticlimactic, like I'd left something on the table, like I hadn't fully won. There was still a part of me, the old, unphilosophical part, that gnawed at me, saying I was naive, I was weak, I'd missed an opportunity. But then, something interesting started to happen. By not engaging in their unfairness, by holding my ground on principle, I subtly shifted the dynamic. They were expecting a counter-punch, an escalation, a mirroring of their own tactics. When it didn't come, it disarmed them in a way that aggression never could have. The tension in the room, while still present, changed. It became less personal, less emotionally charged. We were able to focus on the actual terms, the substance of the deal, rather than getting lost in a tit-for-tat battle of wills. And while the final deal wasn't perfect, no deal ever is, it was a fair deal. And more importantly, I walked away from that table with my integrity intact. I hadn't compromised who I was to get it done. And that feeling, that quiet sense of internal alignment, was worth more than any financial advantage I might have gained through unfair means. This was around the 6-minute mark. And this realization, this shift in perspective from external gain to internal state, was the breakthrough that changed the direction of everything for me. Treating others fairly wasn't just an ethical nice to have, it was a fundamental strategy for preserving my own peace and power in a world that constantly tries to pull you into its chaos. It was a transformative moment. This principle of fairness, this Stoic imperative, isn't just for big business deals. It's for the small stuff too. It's how you treat the waiter who gets your order wrong when they're clearly having a bad day. It's how you respond to that frustrating email that's clearly designed to provoke you. It's how you talk about people behind their backs, or rather, how you don't. It's the conscious choice to assume good intent until proven otherwise, rather than jumping to negative conclusions. It's the willingness to listen, truly listen, to someone you disagree with, to try and understand their perspective, even if you ultimately don't accept it. It's about recognizing that every single person you interact with, regardless of their station in life, regardless of how they treat you, is a fellow human being. Striving, struggling, just like you. They have their own fears, their own pressures, their own imperfect understanding of the world. And Stoicism reminds us that harming them, treating them unfairly, is a violation of the natural order, a betrayal of our shared humanity. Think about the last time you felt truly wronged. The last time someone was unfair to you. How did it feel? It probably hurt. It probably made you angry. It probably consumed your thoughts. That's the experience from the receiving end. Now, flip it. Think about a time, maybe small, maybe large, when you were unfair to someone else. Maybe you justified it at the time. Maybe you even felt a perverse sense of satisfaction. But if you're honest with yourself, truly, brutally honest, wasn't there a cost? A little chip away at your own self-respect? A subtle feeling of unease? That's your nature, your inner compass, telling you that you've strayed from the path. That's the damage you inflict on yourself when you choose unfairness. And this is a question I want you to ponder deeply. When was the last time the easy choice, the tempting choice, was to be unfair? And what did it cost you? Not in dollars or cents, but in your own peace of mind, your own sense of self-worth, your own character? This isn't about being a doormat. This isn't about letting people walk all over you. Stoicism is a philosophy of strength, not weakness. It's about mastering yourself, not being mastered by others or by your own unruly emotions. Treating others fairly doesn't mean you don't defend yourself. It doesn't mean you don't pursue your goals vigorously. But it means you do it justly. You do it with integrity. You fight the good fight. But you don't descend into the mud yourself. You can be assertive without being aggressive. You can be firm without being cruel. You can win without compromising your soul. And frankly, I've found that when you operate from a place of fundamental fairness, you gain a clarity and a power that those who rely on manipulation and unfairness can never possess. They are constantly looking over their shoulder, constantly worried about being exposed, constantly trapped in a web of their own making. But when your actions are aligned with justice, you stand on solid ground. You are free. But what if treating others fairly unlocks a hidden superpower you didn't know you had? Stay tuned. Alright, so we just talked about how choosing fairness in the face of unfairness isn't weakness. It's a declaration of internal independence. It's protecting your own character. But I teased something else, didn't I? I talked about a hidden superpower. Something unlocked by treating others fairly that you might not expect. And you know what that superpower is? It's freedom. Profound, unshakable freedom. You see, when you operate from a place of unfairness, you are inherently dependent. You are dependent on manipulating others. You are dependent on external outcomes. You are dependent on things you cannot control. Your mood, your success, your very sense of self-worth becomes tied to getting one over on someone. to achieving a specific result through means that compromise your values. And anything you are dependent on, anything outside of your control, has power over you. That client who you misled, their potential discovery holds power over you. That competitor you cheated, their reaction dictates your anxiety. That friend you betrayed, your guilt becomes a chain. You become a slave to the need to maintain the facade, to avoid consequences, to keep the house of cards from collapsing. But when you choose fairness, when you act justly regardless of the external situation, you are not dependent on anything outside yourself. Your actions are dictated by your own internal values, by your commitment to virtue. You are not seeking validation from external success gained unfairly. You are not living in fear of being found out. Your peace of mind doesn't rely on someone else's reaction or their ignorance. You are acting in accordance with your nature, with reason, with the fundamental Stoic understanding that our highest good lies within us, in our character, in our choices, and that is true freedom. The freedom from the need to manipulate, the freedom from the fear of exposure, the freedom from the gnawing anxiety that comes from knowing you're not acting in alignment with your deepest values. Think about it this way. The Stoics saw us as social animals. Our nature is to cooperate, to live in community, to help one another. When we treat others unfairly, we are acting against our fundamental design. It's like trying to use a hammer to saw wood. It doesn't work. It's frustrating, and you end up damaging both the tool and the material. Unfairness isn't just bad for the other person, it's a self-inflicted wound. It's going against the grain of your own being. And when you go against your nature, you suffer. You feel it in that sense of unease, that restlessness, that feeling that something isn't quite right. That's your nature crying out, telling you to correct course. And the correction? It's fairness. It's justice. It's aligning your actions with your fundamental social nature. I remember another moment, years ago, before Stoicism really clicked for me. I was in a situation where someone I knew, someone I considered a friend, was going through a really tough time. They were in a vulnerable position, and I had information that, if I used it correctly, could have significantly benefited me financially. It wasn't illegal, again, but it was definitely taking advantage of their distress, leveraging their weakness for my gain. The old me, the one driven by external metrics of success, saw this as an opportunity. Business is business, that voice whispered. They'd do the same to you. And I almost did it. I drafted the email. I planned the conversation. I was ready to pull the trigger. And the thought of the potential gain was intoxicating. But even then, before I had the clear framework of Stoicism, there was that familiar, unpleasant feeling in my gut, that sense of unease, and thankfully, something stopped me. I didn't go through with it. Instead, I actually offered help. I didn't exploit their situation. I tried to alleviate it. And the immediate result? Zero financial gain for me. On the surface, it looked like I'd missed a golden opportunity. My old thinking would have labeled that a failure. But the internal result? A feeling of profound relief. A sense of clarity. I slept soundly that night. I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I hadn't created a situation that could blow up in my face down the line. I had preserved something far more valuable than the potential financial gain: my integrity. And this is where the cost of not treating people fairly becomes starkly clear. It's not just about the other person. It's about the damage you do to yourself. It's the guilt that corrodes your insides. It's the anxiety of having to cover your tracks. It's the reputation, the quiet knowledge among those who observe you that you are not someone to be trusted. Not someone who operates with integrity. That intangible cost is immense. It costs you genuine relationships. It costs you opportunities that require trust. It costs you your own peace of mind. It's the $1 million principle no one talks about, the potential, often unseen, cost of unfairness far outweighs any short-term gain. Have you ever felt that gnawing feeling? That internal discomfort, after you knew you weren't fair? Maybe you snapped at someone who didn't deserve it, or you took credit for something you didn't do, or you spoke unkindly about someone when they weren't there to defend themselves. That feeling? That's your nature telling you something important. That's the internal alarm system going off, letting you know you're acting against yourself. But okay, life isn't always black and white, right? What about those complex situations where fairness seems ambiguous, where there are shades of gray? How does Stoicism help you navigate that? This is where the wisdom part of the Stoic virtues comes in. It's not enough to just want to be fair. You need the wisdom to discern what fairness requires in a given situation. This involves carefully evaluating the facts, understanding the perspectives of everyone involved, and making a judgment based on reason, not just emotion or self-interest. It's about asking, what does justice demand here? What is the right thing to do, stripped of my personal biases and desires? Let me give you an example. Imagine you're a manager, and you have 2 employees. Employee A consistently performs well, is reliable, and contributes positively to the team culture. Employee B is struggling, missing deadlines, and causing friction. On the surface, fairness might seem simple. Reward employee A, discipline employee B, but what if you dig deeper? What if you discover employee B is going through a severe personal crisis you were unaware of? What if employee A, while performing well, is secretly taking shortcuts that will cause problems later? Fairness here isn't about equal treatment. It's about appropriate treatment based on a full understanding of the situation and the individuals involved. It requires wisdom, empathy, another quality the Stoics valued, seeing it as a logical extension of justice and our social nature, and a commitment to finding a just resolution that considers the well-being of all involved. The team, and the organization. A Stoic manager wouldn't just punish employee B, they would seek to understand the cause of the struggle, offer support if appropriate, and make decisions based on what is best for the whole. While still holding individuals accountable, they would address employee A's shortcuts, recognizing that allowing them is unfair to the team and the long-term health of the project. Fairness becomes a dynamic process of seeking understanding and acting with proportionality and reason. And this brings us to another, wow, moment. Something I experienced that solidified this for me. I was in a conflict with someone who had, in my eyes, acted incredibly unfairly towards me. They had spread rumors, undermined my work, and generally made my life difficult. My initial, very human, reaction was anger, resentment, and a strong desire for retribution. I wanted to expose them. I wanted to see them suffer consequences. Every fiber of my being was screaming for me to fight fire with fire, to be just as unfair to them as they had been to me. But I remembered the Stoic principle. My reaction was mine. Their actions were theirs. My character was my responsibility. And I asked myself, what would justice require here? Not just justice for me. Not just vengeance, but true justice. The kind that seeks balance and reason. And the answer wasn't retaliation. The answer, the incredibly difficult answer, was to address the situation directly, calmly, and with truth, without resorting to their tactics. It was to state the facts of their actions, explain the impact, and set clear boundaries, but to do it without malice, without unfair accusation, without sinking to their level. It was, in a way, an act of fairness to them, by giving them the dignity of a direct, truthful confrontation, rather than engaging in the same underhanded behavior they had employed. And the result was astonishing. They were disarmed. They were expecting an attack, a mirroring of their own methods, when faced with calm, reasoned truth and a refusal to engage in unfairness. They had nothing to push against. The conflict didn't escalate into an ugly, drawn-out war. It was contained. It was resolved, not with a bang, but with a quiet, uncomfortable acceptance of reality. And I walked away, not with the fleeting satisfaction of having won through manipulation, but with the deep, abiding peace of having acted in accordance with my values. That experience taught me that fairness isn't just an ethical rule, it's a profound tool for navigating conflict, for disarming aggression, and for preserving your own power in the face of someone else's unfairness. It's a secret weapon. You think treating people fairly is just about being nice. You're missing the biggest piece of the puzzle. What if I told you fairness is the key to controlling the one thing you can control? The answer will shock you. Okay, you stayed. You want to know the shocker. The biggest piece of the puzzle. The one thing that treating people fairly helps you control? It's not their actions. Obviously, it's not the outcome of a negotiation or a conflict. It's not what they say or think about you. The one thing you can control, the only thing the Stoics ever said you truly possess, is your judgments, your perceptions, the way you interpret the world and the people in it. And treating others fairly is fundamentally about mastering your judgments. Think about it. Why are we unfair? Often, it's because we make unfair judgments about others. We judge their intentions harshly. We assume the worst. We label them based on one action or one perceived flaw. We tell ourselves stories about why they deserve bad treatment. They're lazy. They're malicious. They're stupid. They're against me. And these judgments, these internal narratives, then drive our unfair behavior. We lash out because we judge them as hostile. We cheat because we judge them as deserving to be cheated. We withhold empathy because we judge them as unworthy of it. Stoicism, particularly the discipline of assent, is about scrutinizing these judgments before we agree to them. Before we let them take root and dictate our actions. When someone does something that seems unfair to us, our first impression, our initial judgment, might be, they are a terrible person, and they did that to hurt me. But the Stoic pauses. They examine that impression. Is it necessarily true that they intended to hurt me? Could there be another explanation? Even if their action was objectively wrong, does that single action define their entire being? Does that justify my responding with equally wrong actions? Treating others fairly requires us to challenge our own negative, often biased, judgments about them. It requires us to grant them the same benefit of the doubt we would want for ourselves. It requires us to see them, not as villains in our personal drama, but as complex individuals, products of their own experiences and often flawed judgments, striving in their own way, just like us. And this is where the power comes in. By controlling our judgments, by choosing to see others fairly, even when it's hard, we gain an incredible power over our own emotional landscape. If you judge someone unfairly, you generate anger, resentment, frustration. You become a prisoner of your own negative interpretations. But if you choose a fair judgment, this person made a mistake. Or, they are acting out of fear. Or, their understanding of the situation is different from mine. You open the door to different, more constructive emotions, or at least, less destructive ones. You can approach the situation with calmness, with clarity, with a focus on finding a reasonable solution, rather than being consumed by righteous indignation. This isn't about denying reality, it's about interpreting reality through the lens of reason and justice, which are aligned with nature, rather than through the distorted lens of ego and emotion. Consider forgiveness from a Stoic perspective. It's not about condoning the unfair action. It's not saying what they did was okay. It's about releasing yourself from the grip of resentment and anger. It's about choosing not to hold onto the unfairness like a hot coal, burning only yourself. And that release? That's an act of profound self-fairness. You are treating yourself justly by freeing yourself from the burden of unproductive negativity. And often, seeing the other person fairly, seeing their flaws, their struggles, their humanity, makes that release possible. You realize their unfairness often stems from their own weakness, their own ignorance, rather than a perfectly calibrated plan to destroy you. And while that doesn't excuse their behavior, understanding it can dissolve the intense emotional charge it holds over you. This isn't just theory. I've seen this play out in the most challenging situations. I saw someone who had every right to be consumed by bitterness and anger after being treated incredibly unfairly choose a different path. Instead of seeking revenge or dwelling on the injustice, they focused on rebuilding their own life, on continuing to act with integrity, and, crucially, on refusing to let the unfairness of others corrupt their own character. They didn't pretend it didn't hurt. They didn't say it was okay. But they refused to mirror the unfairness. And in that refusal, they demonstrated a strength, a resilience, a quiet dignity that was far more powerful than any retribution could have been. Their actions, their fair actions in the face of profound unfairness, had a ripple effect, inspiring others and ultimately contributing to a resolution that was far more constructive than endless conflict. That was a true, wow, moment for me, seeing Stoic fairness not just as an individual virtue, but as a force for positive change in the world, starting with the individual's unbreakable commitment to it. Treating others fairly is the Stoic imperative because it is aligned with reason, with nature, and with our highest good, our virtue. When we are unfair, we damage the interconnected web of humanity. We violate our own social nature. And most importantly, we inflict a wound upon our own soul, our own character. We become less than we are capable of being. We become slaves to external circumstances and our own uncontrolled judgments. But when we choose fairness, when we strive for justice in all our interactions, big and small, we are asserting our freedom. We are declaring that our character is inviolable. We are aligning ourselves with the fundamental order of the universe. As the Stoics understood it, we are building something within us that no external force can shake. We are mastering our judgments, the only thing truly within our control. This is not about being perfect. You will mess up. You will be unfair sometimes. I still do. The goal isn't instant perfection, it's conscious practice. It's catching yourself. It's reflecting. It's striving, constantly, to align your actions with the virtue of justice. So, I leave you with this challenge, this Stoic imperative for your own life. Starting right now, look at your interactions today. This week, where is the opportunity to be unfair? Where is the temptation to cut a corner? To speak unkindly? To judge harshly? To take advantage? And in that moment, pause. Remember the Stoic wisdom. Remember that your character is your most precious possession. Remember that treating others fairly is not about them, it's about you. It's about preserving your internal freedom, your peace, your power. It's the ultimate power move in a world desperate for authenticity and integrity. How will you practice fairness today? What is one small step you can take in your next interaction to choose justice, to choose fairness, even when it's difficult? Do not underestimate the power of that small step. It is the foundation of everything. Because in a world begging for strength, in a world drowning in unfairness, the true power, the unshakable, revolutionary power, is treating others fairly. Period.